Tonight you'll complain about a 9 to 5. Tomorrow you'll complain about it again. You assume this is the price of survival, the deal every human has always made, but the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, you didn't work like this at all. Picture a hunter-gatherer camp 40,000 years ago, smoke rising, children playing near the fire, someone sharpening a spear, half paying attention. It looks urgent. It looks exhausting. It wasn't. In the 1960s, anthropologist Richard Lee spent months living with the hoansi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last groups still living a largely traditional foraging lifestyle. He tracked exactly how they spent their time. What he found broke every assumption anyone had made about primitive survival. Adults worked, on average, around 15 hours a week to meet their food needs. 15, not 50, not 60, 15. The rest of the time, they rested. They told stories. They visited relatives. They slept. Does that sound like survival to you? It sounds more like retirement. This is the discovery that anthropologist Marshall Solins turned into one of the most quietly radical essays in the field, calling hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. Not affluent because they had more. Affluent because they wanted less. And what they wanted, the land almost always provided. Your instinct is to assume progress means more free time. Farming, then factories, then offices, each one supposedly buying you back a little more leisure. The data says the opposite happened. When humans switched to agriculture, work hours went up, not down. Bones from early farming communities show more stress fractures, more malnutrition, shorter lifespans than the foragers who came before them. You traded a flexible, varied, quietly generous relationship with your environment for a fixed, repetitive, punishing one, and you called it civilization. So what were your ancestors actually doing with all that leftover time? Not lying around, mostly. They were maintaining something you've almost completely lost, a dense web of relationships. Hunter-gatherer bands were small, usually 25 to 50 people, and everyone's survival depended on everyone else's cooperation. Food was shared, not hoarded. A successful hunt fed the whole camp, not just the hunter's household. This wasn't charity, it was insurance. You fed others today so that others fed you on the day your hunt failed. Anthropologist Kristen Hawkes studied the Hadza people of Tanzania and noticed something that didn't fit the old story of man the hunter, providing for his family. Older women, well past their own childbearing years, were often the most productive foragers in the entire camp. They gathered tubers and fruit for hours, then handed the surplus to their daughters and grandchildren. Hawkes called this the grandmother hypothesis, the idea that human menopause itself may have evolved because older women who stopped having their own children could instead pour that energy into feeding everyone else's. Cooperation wasn't a nice bonus on top of survival, it was survival's actual engine. You can feel an echo of this in your own life, even now. Think about the last time someone brought food to your house during a hard week. Think about a group chat that exists only to check in on people. That instinct didn't come from etiquette class. It came from about 200,000 years of your ancestors knowing that isolation was a death sentence and connection was food in the bank. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Foragers didn't just have more free time than you. They may have had better mental health because of it. Depression and chronic anxiety, in the clinical, pervasive sense we recognize today, appear to be rare or nearly absent in many traditional foraging societies studied by anthropologists. That doesn't mean their lives were easy. Disease, predators, and violence were real threats. But the specific grinding psychological weight you carry, the constant background hum of not enough time, not enough money, not enough rest, that particular flavor of suffering looks a lot like an invention of settled, stratified societies. Yours. Why? Because your brain didn't evolve to handle abstract, open-ended stress. It evolved to handle concrete, solvable problems. A lion is 30 feet away. You climb a tree. Problem solved, stress hormones drain back down. But a mortgage payment due in 11 days isn't a problem your nervous system can physically resolve. There's no tree. There's no lion to outrun. So the stress just sits there, unspent, for weeks at a time. Anthropologist James Sussman, who spent decades among the hoansi, made an observation that cuts right to the center of this. He noticed that when foragers finished their work for the day, they were actually finished. No emails waiting, no sense that they should be doing something more productive with the remaining daylight. Rest wasn't a reward you'd earned after suffering enough. It was simply the default state you returned to once immediate needs were met. Your ancestors didn't need to be taught mindfulness. They just lived inside a rhythm modern life systematically dismantled. Now here's the twist inside the twist. You might assume all this leisure meant boredom, or stagnation, or a lack of ambition. It's the opposite. That unstructured time was very likely the engine behind your species' explosion of creativity. Cave paintings, intricate jewelry, complex tools, elaborate burial rituals, all of it appears in the archaeological record once humans had enough surplus time to simply sit and think, to experiment, to make something with no immediate survival purpose at all. Idle hands didn't build the devil's workshop. They built art. You live in a world engineered to eliminate exactly the kind of time that made your species remarkable in the first place. Every gap gets filled. Waiting for the bus, you check your phone. Eating lunch, you check your phone. The 15 minutes before sleep that used to belong to your own drifting thoughts now belong to a feed optimized to keep you scrolling. Your ancestors' free hours were unstructured and social. Yours are structured and solitary, even when they look like leisure. There's a reason a walk in the woods can feel like therapy, and a scroll through your phone rarely does, even though both technically count as a break. One rhythm matches what your nervous system expects. The other doesn't. You are, in a very real sense, running ancient hardware on modern software it was never designed to run. So what do you actually do with this? You're not going to move to the Kalahari next week, but you can start noticing where the mismatch lives. Notice how often your free time is actually just a different kind of consumption. Notice how rarely you sit with genuinely nothing to do, the way a body finishing its work for the day is supposed to feel. Notice how much of your stress has no lion to run from, and how much relief comes simply from naming that fact out loud to another person, the oldest technology you have. Your ancestors weren't smarter than you, or more disciplined, or less distracted by nature. They just lived inside a system that gave time back instead of taking it. You inherited their brain, their nervous system, their deep need for other people checking in on you. You did not inherit their schedule. Tonight, you'll flip on a screen and complain about a 9 to 5. But now you know the real story. It was never about working less. It was about remembering how to stop.